Mapping on Path of Exile is one of the most frustrating things, to be able to actually get decent maps in a decent amount of time and get very good modifiers on every single one of your maps is just a pain. But today's video, I've managed to kind of get a very good grip with the latest Dawn of the Hunt season on Path of Exile 2 to be able to actually give a good opinion on the fastest way that I've been able to go through my maps to create maps that look something like these and make lots of them, save you, 5 times the time that you would probably spend currently getting to this point where you have, all of the various different mods and changes and rituals and delirium breaches all on your maps, and also be able to boost how much each one of these are and stop yourself from having to do some of those terrible maps that maybe you hate doing, so you can pick any map that you want without having to ever go through some of the maps that you don't like. So with that being said, it all comes down to a wide variety of different things. Obviously you've got the Atlas passive, which we'll go into. This is going to cover everything regarding maps, what I do to boost up my maps to get the most amount of currencies, whether that be from rares or simply actual dropped currency as well. And then your waystones, and then we're going to cover probably the most important precursor tablet and some of the other precursor tablets that you will do along the way to be the most efficient that I found so far. So starting off, I guess we'll look at the Atlas passive. This whole thing features around getting yourself as much pack size alongside quantity and rarity as you possibly can. We'll cover each of the different individual kind of rituals and stuff like that as well that I've managed to do, as well as go through all of the different trees. So starting off, essentially what we do is having to unfortunately take some quantity of waystones. Not really worth actually doing, but it's a more efficient route of going through. But we are hitting up the left hand side. This is where we kind of connect into. This gives us local knowledge, which is basically some bonuses to the various different map types to allow for more jewels, gold, buyers, socket currencies and basic currencies. So it's a pretty good, I guess, addition. It's not a terrible one. So we make our way up here, and then we are going for increased effect of precursor tablets. These are really, really useful because it just essentially increases the effect of all of them. And so we want to be able to boost those up as much as possible, which is what we've got. So, maybe you have, I don't know, a 10% or 100% chance. You would then have 108% when you do put these on. So we're going up this way, and then we are picking monster packs, so 3% increased number of monster packs. So this is very nice. It's just going to give you more monsters in each one of those packs, whether that be magic or standard mobs that are actually in the map itself, and it just gives you an additional chance at one of those monsters dropping a currency item, and then that currency item getting re-rolled into something like an exalt or a chaos orb or whatever it might be. And then on the left, we take all of these nodes. So waystone modifier effect, 3% increased effect, this little cluster down here. And then we are taking some more effects and going over to the right hand side over here, which is where we get our double chance for precursor tablets on our map. So essentially, when you place in a precursor tablet into your map, there is a 20% chance for it to double. So say on your precursor you have 10% rarity, there is a 20% chance that will turn into 20% rarity. Obviously, if you've got 100% rarity, it could go to 200% and stuff like that. So having that 20% chance is really, really useful and can make some absolutely broken maps, especially when it comes to pack size and monster density and stuff like that in your maps. So really, really useful. And of course, you can see we're just taking the increased effect on these and then some increased effect of explicit modifiers. Down here, we are not speccing into basically any of the extra content. So things like, the rogue exiles. And I've tested out a couple things with like rogue exiles. And whilst you can buff them up, the amount of points that you have to put in to make them really worth it, it just doesn't really seem a whole lot worth actually doing. And so, yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like a lot of the extra bits, you spend a lot of points getting there and they don't really reward you anyway. Like most of the extra content that was added with this latest season was pretty dead. I mean, the wisps, etc., pretty dead. So we come down here, we're taking rarity and we're taking quantity of waystones, and then all the way over here we can pick up the 2% increased effect of explicit modifiers on your waystone for each explicit modifier. So essentially if you're running a 6 modifier map, then you're going to be having 12% increased effect. So that is always nice. Up here we're taking our unstable energies. This is nice because we have a chance, essentially you can get 25% increased effect of prefix modifiers, so that is the good ones, and a 25% chance at the suffix modifiers when opening map. So it is essentially you will either have boosted maps or you'll have boosted negatives. But the way that we're running our waystones are that essentially our waystones don't have too many suffix modifiers, so even when they are boosted by 25%, it doesn't really affect our maps in a negative way. So it is just essentially a 50% chance that we will have more effect of our waystone in every single map that we're running. Obviously you get pack size up here, and you could pick this pack size as well if you had the points, or maybe you want to change it a little bit. This is not a definitive, you have to pick all of these, maybe you really want to go for some of the others, but this is the general layout that I've been using. We are then running pack size on the left hand side, so picking up the increased magic monsters and picking up magic pack size. Now this is something that you don't have to do, this is magic specific, and whilst magic monsters are decent for just getting an extra chance at getting stuff, obviously pack size is really nice to have. So you could take off some of these, but the reason why we're using it is for rituals, because we can have increased magic monsters in the rituals, which is going to give us more tribute overall, because the actual effect of each one of these is pretty big compared to an increase of 3% pack size, for example, on an individual basis. So that's kind of why we're running it, but you could easily take these 2 and 3 off, add in some pack size 1, 2 here, and then grab up this pack size here for an additional 9% increased pack size. Then we are running, of course, rarity and picking up some quantity down here, as well as the increased effect of explicit modifiers, which is always nice. Now, whether or not you take one of these off and go for 2% increased quantity of items found in your maps is probably the way to go, and maybe we'll do that right now. So there we go, we've added that one in, and then that is basically the standard passives that we've got for the Atlas and our maps in specific. In terms of what we are actually running for additional content, so breaches, simulacrum, and then all of the rituals and breaches. So breaches, if you can manage to do all of the bosses, which at this point in the league, if you've been running lightning speed, you should probably be able to at least do one of them, or you can get yourself a carry from someone who will just delete the boss really, really quickly for you, just to get all of the 8 points. What we have is we're going for monster density. This increases like basically everything in there, so we can keep the breach alive, keep them going for longer, and get more monsters in there for us to drop stuff. We are then running the crumbling walls so that we can get additional breaches and a good chance at getting the 10 additional breaches in our maps, which is like a god tier roll when you do manage to get that one. And then we've got a grasping hands as well for more hands, so that we can then get more magic monsters in our maps, and we can also then have a better chance at getting ourselves the breach lords clasped hands to keep the breach alive a little bit more, and also get ourselves some of the breach rings that are in there. And then of course you got the quantity of splinters. I hate splinters, and breach definitely needs a rework, because picking up like 100 breach splinters off the floor is just a pain in the backside. So it needs to be like the delirium, to be honest, where it just like gives you the stack build up, and then at the end it will just drop all of your breach splinters once the breach closes. That would be the best thing that they could do, so you don't have to go ahead and pick all of the tiny little breach splinters around the map that takes like twice this time of actually just doing the map in its entirety. And then we move over to Simulacrum. We're basically just going for Isn't It Tempting and Get Out of My Head. Simulacrum is just not really worth it because some of these aren't actually possible to be used at the moment. So yeah, it's, you know, you can boost these even more, and maybe I would run something in the future like Delirium. This one, so They're Coming to Get You, is actually pretty decent because you get more unique bosses which drop more splinters, about 7 per one. And then you could go up to here, so increase stack sizes, simulacrum splinters from non-unique monsters in your maps. But then the other ones are kind of down to you, but that's kind of what I'm doing in my maps. Sometimes the increased reward progress and dissipating 50% faster is essentially just speeding up how long it takes you to get the rewards, which is actually pretty decent as well. But we're running Delirious maps in the first place, so I would rather just have maps that are essentially going to have Delirious on them and getting yourself some more rewards for doing those maps if we wanted to. And then you can see here they have a 20% chance to have random instilled emotions on all of our waystones. So this is really good. It can save you a ton of money and get you some of the best modifiers on your waystone for free. So that's essentially what we do with that. Rituals, we are going for packs of world monsters, so essentially because we're running a lot of pack size, we don't really need to go so much for increased tribute because all of our maps are going to have a ton of monsters in, and most of the time we are now just looking to get through all of the different ritual kind of rerolls that we possibly can. So we take the additional reroll option, so you can get reroll. It also then reduces the tribute from re-rolling favors, which is always nice. And then of course we're running up towards he approaches, which gives us an increased chance to have rares in the revived monsters and audience with the king, and then increased chance to be magic as well. So these are the rituals which give us a ton of ritual points when we're actually going into the rituals. And then ominous portents to give us a 100% increased chance for omens to be in the rituals, which is really big and probably one of the best ones that you can have. And it also spawn monsters 25% faster, so it's just speeding up your rituals in general, which is what we want, faster. And yeah, just if we can make it faster but keep the rewards the exact same, that is perfect. If we can increase the speed but increase the rewards at the same time, that is even more perfect because we can do more maps and get more rewards. And then the final one is expedition logbooks. Now I need to do just one more. We've got a ton of logbooks. I've just been lazy and haven't done them. But essentially we're running towards the extreme archaeology, where it gives you one singular explosive that you place down, and it covers like the entire half of the expedition. It's really useful because yet again it speeds up our expeditions. And then we run over to increased quantity of expedition logbooks, because the logbooks themselves you can sell as a standard if you really wanted to, and then you just get an increased number of runic monster markers, which is what we want because that's what actually drops the monsters. You don't really want things that are going to bonus your remnants that you're finding on there. We want the actual runic monsters to spawn more and buff them that way, because we've got pack size and everything on. That gets buffed further, so really useful. And I'm averaging probably like a logbook every other expedition that we're running, so really useful, really good. And so yeah, highly recommend doing that. And then that is pretty much our Atlas. It's pretty simple, pack size and speed. That is what we're wanting. And then of course, yeah, the Arbiter, that's just what I'm doing, which is socket currency and just adding the additional unique. And then we'll the reason why I haven't run Arbiter is not because it's too difficult, it's just because there's not a whole lot of point, and the profit margins of doing Arbiter right now just aren't really there because of the cost of the actual fragments that you have to put in. And yeah, I mean, if you do get taken out, which is quite easy when you're running an absolute glass cannon that I am running, so yeah, not particularly the greatest. He can just one hit you if he does manage to get an attack off if you mess up just a tiny bit. But anyway, that is that. But how do we actually speed through all of the maps? Well, I have got myself the Grand Project Precursor tablet. This is the best tablet that you can use in any of your maps. Why is that? Well, it just basically means we can speed through and speed run our maps. So if, for example, we look at this tower, I'm going to do it for you guys right now. So when we click on this tower, highlight it, you can see we get the outer radius of the actual tower, where you can see what is impacted by this specific tower. And when we click on it, you can obviously put in a waystone. Now, the waystones that we will put into this, you can run lower tier waystones if you want to, with all of the modifiers added onto them. But if we go down to our stash and we just pick out a random waystone, let's take one that has not terrible modifiers. When I'm looking at waystones as to whether or not I should buff them up, I'm always looking for the standard kind of negative suffix modifier. So you can see this one has monster elemental resistance of plus 50%, minus 11% to max player resistance. These are both things that are just a pain. So we want to find one that isn't too bad. So monsters have 50% increase area of effect. That's absolutely fine. So what we can do is, if you want to like juice up these as much as possible, and they already have, like, they're not a normal waystone, what you can do is go ahead and we want to pick a Sinistral Coronation. This is 1.5 or 1.53 exalt per one. And so let's pick it out. Let's get 2, and we should be able to get 3 for that. We'll pick these out, and we use that because it's going to give us only prefix modifiers. Prefix modifiers are what you want. That gives us 38% increased pack size. Then what you can also do in addition to this is go ahead and we can find ourselves the Omen of Sinistral Exaltation. This is going to add prefix modifiers with our next exalted orb, which is good, but it is quite expensive. Like, obviously this is to secure that you're not going to really get any bad modifiers on your maps, but usually I'll kind of just do the Regal one first, and then I will just exalt slam to see what we get. We get increased critical damage bonus, which is probably one of the worst for me because it means magic monsters can like one-shot me if they hit me. So we would then just go ahead and pick up another one. Maybe we've already kind of buffed one. So this one, shock chance, extra maximum energy shield. That's not too bad. We can exalt slam it. And there you go. Now we've got a maxed out map, and we can go ahead and drop that one in. And that gives us all 3 of the slots at the bottom for Precursor tablets, which is what we want. You should always be running with 3 slots in your towers every single time by using a 6 modifier waystone every single time that you're running this. So I'm going to go ahead and actually run this map in particular, and then I'll join you back in a second just so you can see what we do with the Precursor tablets and which Precursor tablets we're actually focusing on. And so there we go, we have done the tower. Super simple, took about 1 minute because it's the best tower, to be honest. You just keep going up the floors, you don't have to do anything with Sinking Spire. So now that our actual kind of one is done, what we can have a look now for is we are looking for citadels to be in the smoke. So you can see over here we have ourselves a citadel that we can do. Now this citadel is quite far away, and you can see our outer radius of the tower that we've got right now is what, like, I don't know, probably like 3 maps away from the actual tower here. So we can have a look at this tower. So we're going to have to run about 3 maps to get over there, but that's fine. But we've got a tower right here, so that's fine as well. So we're kind of looking to chain towers together when we're doing all of the maps. That's a strategy to do what we're about to do. So now what we want to do is grab up our Precursor. I would highly recommend having yourself a tab with Precursors in. So you can see I have managed to got 2 tabs with Precursor tablets in. And then what we usually are searching for is quantity. So quantity of items found in your maps is what you want. Now quantity of items found can go up to 7%. This is like the perfect rolls. Of course we got a min roll here with only 3%, but essentially if you stack a ton of precursor tablets you should be able to find at least a couple with 7%, 5%, that sort of range. So we want the highest quantity that we can find, or alternatively go for rare monsters. Rare monsters is also a good one. So if we type in rare monsters, we should be able to find a few. So you can see here 13% increased rare monsters. That's actually a good one, and that's irradiated maps. And then we want to always have you can either focus on one specific kind of encounter, so breaches, or you can go for example, expedition, and kind of boost all of those expeditions from one tower. And then, so for me, obviously, I've already got rare monsters on this one. And then if we go down to our second one, we are looking for some more rare monsters that is on a different type of map. So you can see breach right there with rare monsters, or magic monsters, and rares have an additional modifier, or no, they spawn an additional rare monster in the breach itself, which is okay, but we could probably go for quantity on a breach. So there, a 10% increased rare monster and a 2% chance to contain additional 3 breaches, 3% chance with a 14%. So that is like the perfect. And then we are using the best possible precursor tablet. This is the Grand Project. It costs about 50 exalt at the moment of recording this video, and it allows you to access anywhere in the range of the tower without having to actually travel there. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can see we have this tower right here, but we have not pathed anywhere from this tower. You can see we pathed down to this tower, and that is it. And then once we've activated this precursor tablet, we can now access any map within its radius. So you can see from this tower, we can access this map. We could go right to the very edge over here. We can go all the way over here, which allows us to only spend one map to get this tower. And then from that tower, we can then boost it again. And there's probably going to be some more stuff over here. But the reason why we haven't gone over here is because we've got half of this radius anyway. So this would be a tower where we purely buff and don't use one of these, because there's no point. We haven't got a tower really near where this is actually going to be, except from this one over here. So ideally you're looking for towers that are going to be close. So from this tower that we've got here, we are 1 slot away from this tower. We have this tower in range, so we can instantly do this tower. And then from down here, we've got probably about 2 slots away from this tower down here. So when I drop in this, and then we can drop in another irradiated, or you can have, you know, expedition or whatever, but because we got so many towers near, it's going to be buffed anyway. And then we can put in the breaches. So quantity, rarity, or rare monsters is what you're going to want on your precursor tablets. I would highly recommend not using just any old precursor tablet. Try and focus on getting the rare monsters, because this is what is going to drop the biggest amounts of loot. Same with quantity and rarity. Quantity over rarity should always be the thing. But obviously you're not always going to have 3 quantity waystones or precursor tablets to put in. So once we activate this, we are now going to be able to access everywhere in this circle. So let's do it right now, and there you go. So instantly we can do this tower down here, which basically means you don't have to ever do any of the maps before you do the towers. So we can essentially get this tower down here. This also has a range, so you can see we could use this tower. This is probably not going to be one that we'll use, because we can see in the mist there's not actually any towers close to it really. So we would just use this to buff the map with 3 different kind of, I guess, events. So ritual, breach, or whatever, and then expedition, and then that tower will cover some of the areas that we've already got. So we could have every single kind of type on the map. And then of course we will make our way to Savannah down here. I probably wouldn't use that one, because Savannah is probably one of the best maps in the game. So we go augury, and then that will trail down here towards the tower. And then that is basically what we've done. We've got ourselves an a copper citadel up here. So we can do that. That was from the previous tower. And so in doing so, rather than starting from this tower and pathing our way over to this tower, which if we do a quick little check, it would have taken 1 map, 2 maps, 3 maps, 4 maps, and then it would have taken us 5, 6 maps roughly to get there from this tower over here. Instead, we did it in one go because it's in the range. So that saved us 6 maps. And because it saved us 6 maps getting there, we have now 6 maps that are going to be buffed by the tower. So all of the maps that you would have used up getting to the tower now have a better chance at being able to be boosted. So they can all be boosted because when you're using tier 15s with 6 modifiers, you get 99% more maps affected by tablets, which allows you to basically get every single kind of node in range of the tower buffed by whatever you're putting in. So if we put breaches in, every map will have breaches in. If we put delirium, every map will have delirious encounters, like delirious mirrors. And so yeah, you can basically just do that way. So it's a quick and efficient pathing, and then we'll do this tower with the standard and then move down here and do the exact same, which will allow us to get this citadel because this tower is going to be within the range of this citadel is going to be within the range of this tower, so we can insta do the citadel. Now considering that the Grand Project is quite expensive, is it worth doing? Well, the thing you have to factor in is that you are spending like six maps worth getting to a tower where you're not going to have any real decent modifiers on them. Like they're not going to be buffed. And also, maybe you spend 6 movement going down here and you find out that this tower is on its own and there's no other towers. So you've wasted all of that time going down there, and then you have to do the exact same going somewhere else. So what this does is saves you time going to the tower, and also saves you a time and effort of wasting going around. Another great thing about this is that because it reveals the entire map, from that outer edge of the radius of the tower that we've unlocked, you can find other citadels. So this one wasn't on my map previously, but because we've used our tablet, we now have exposed more area of the map, and that has increased the range at which we can find stuff in the mist. Because if you keep going further and further down, you will not find the actual tower. So there is a range to which you can see in the fog. So that has exposed that one. So we've got 2 citadels right near each other, and so we can path both towards these. From this tower over here, we'll get this one. And then maybe we would actually use this lost tower and make our way over to this one. However, it is quite far away, and the nearest tower is here, so we would actually have to path our way down to here. So you can make it up from your own kind of mind whether or not it's worth it, and it might actually be worth doing this tower and then picking up this tower, and then we should nearly be at the citadel rather than doing this one with the tablet. So it's all about thinking about it a little bit ahead of time whilst you go through, and that is going to save you a massive, and I mean a massive amount of time. Like, for example, it took me about 4 or 5 maps to go from over here to all the way down here with all of these juiced maps, all the way over here to this one and over here. So it is literally like doing about 1 map per use that you're doing, and then the tower that is going to be your next one. That is kind of what I'm doing on average, like literally 1 map, then the tower, and then buffing everything. And then now I have like 70 different maps that I can do all in one go, which all have juiced modifiers, and it makes finding those 3 towers that are close within the range of each other, where you can buff them all up with quantity and rarity, and then you can have some very, very good modifiers in all of them. And of course, you can then just use 1 or 2 of the towers that you find without the actual Grand Project to then buff the area with as many modifiers that are beneficial to whatever you're going to be focusing on, like breach, for example. So that is how I'm doing this in particular, and that's the strategy for that. Now, actual waystones that I'm using in particular, what are we using? Well, you can see here, this is actually a pretty decent waystone. It did come with a actual modifier attached to it, which was rare monsters have a 25% chance to have an additional modifier, which isn't the best, but it had a decent roll on quantity and rarity at the start. So what we use is pack size, so we just buff it with Delirium, and then now we've got a map with 16% increased pack size, 67% increased magic monsters, rare monsters, quantity and rarity. Ideally, you want to go for the 100% rarity roll on your Waystone, which I'm sure if we go in here, we have probably got one somewhere. Hopefully, if I'm not being a bot. Fingers crossed. These are all buffed Waystones that we've done exactly how we did previously. So 69% increased rarity. And some of them will have like 100%. And that's kind of what you're looking for. And the best one is quantity rarity. So you can see this one. This is perfect. Except from the elemental resistances on the suffix. Is that 23% increased quantity, 102% rarity. The quantity and rarity are a hybrid, so that kind of goes together, and so you can buff these really, really high. You can get up to like 160% rarity if you roll a high tier rarity and a high tier quantity rarity hybrid. So yeah, this is pretty darn good. And that is going to give you a ton of mobs in there because we buffed up pack size and we buffed up pack size on our Waystone as well. So very, very, very juicy when it comes to your maps. And so now probably best to show you how I actually buff the Waystones to avoid getting some of the rippy maps, especially if you're playing Lightning Spear with this season in particular. Or maybe you're running a character that doesn't have the best defenses or elemental resistances or something, you haven't been able to max them just yet. So we will grab out all 5 of these. We need to get ourselves some of the Sinistral Alchemy. So these green omens down here, these give all of the next alchemy orbs the ability to reach the maximum number of prefix modifiers. So essentially all of the good stuff. And then of course you need some alchemy orbs. Now the Sinistral Alchemies, from what I can remember, you can pick them up for about 2 exalt. Nah, 3 exalt. Okay, not too bad. And it is worth it because doing it the other way where you've already got a blue and buffing them up is just more currency than what you would do here. So you can pick up a Sinistral Alchemy for about 3 exalt. And then what we do is just add these all on, activate them all, and you can see we only get 1 negative modifier. The only negatives I'm really not liking are Ignited Ground. It's just a pain. Things like, what else is there? Critical damage bonus we don't like. Anything that affects your elemental resistances unless you've overcapped your elemental resistances to have like 90% or what have you. For me, Chaos, I just basically have gone full glass cannon with this build to see how much DPS we can actually get, which is 17%. So if we got extra Chaos damage, then I probably wouldn't use the Waystone, or I would save it for maybe a tower or something like that and just buff it and hope for the best. So when we're running the juiced maps, you don't want to be getting taken out during those maps because it is the biggest risk is that you're losing all of that juice that you've managed to get, and you only want to be running those as much as possible. Now you can exalt slam these twice, but I don't do it because there's not much point. We've already got all of the bonuses that we possibly can. And in doing so, say you want to save the amount of times that maybe you lose a map, because if you exalt slam it 2 more times, you're going to get 2 more suffix modifiers, and it could make it very rippy where you get taken out very quickly. And so, and also you lose the revive attempt. So if you have got a really, really good map like Savannah and something just randomly one-shots you, you get hit by a Delirious after a ground effect or something like that. Or an effect after something has got taken out, and then you lose the map entirely, all of the juice, all of the map that you've got, and if it's right at the beginning, it feels like a pain. So having the extra revive chance just allows you to basically always complete the map every single time, and maybe something dropped and then you get taken out and then you've missed it because you got taken out or whatever. So it's just very more effective, and there's no point in getting more suffix modifiers unless you are specifically farming for Waystones, because it gives you increased chance for Waystones. depending on what the modifier is. So now that we've got all of these with all of the maximum modifiers, I will usually pick out the ones that have increased rarity. So increased rarity or increased quantity or increased pack size. So you can see this has a perfect one. 75% increased magic monsters, 31% increased rare monsters, and 30% pack size. Pretty darn good, but it doesn't have rarity or quantity on. So this wouldn't be like the perfect rolled one. This one has 57% increased rarity, 70% increased magic monsters, area contains an additional shrine. So that is a okay one, nothing spectacular there. 27% experience gain, packs of monsters, and then 32% increased pack size, not particularly very good. And then we have got magic pack size and rare monsters, and then gold. So these three, not particularly great, but we would still run them, just not on as good of a juiced map. Maybe if we're going towards a tower on a map device like this one, and we get this one, maybe I'd run it on this augury, like a less juiced one as we're getting to the next tower, as opposed to on like Savannah, for example. So picking the ones that aren't as good and using them on maps that aren't as good for whatever you're intending. So these two, now that we've got those, I will then go over to our Delirium down here, and we've got Guilt and then Greed. Now, depending on what modifiers you actually got on the Waystone that you've actually got, will depend on which one of these two that you're going to use. Guilt gives you pack size. Greed gives you rarity of items found. So, for example, this Stained Path Waystone with magic monsters, rare monsters, and pack size, I don't think we really need that much more pack size. Now, if you did that, then you would get crazy pack size, but the items that are dropping aren't as good. So what I would do is use the rarity on this one, just to give us some more rarity on the Waystone itself. And that gives us a Delirious map. Delirious maps are going to give you Delirious rares, which do give you additional drops. So running Delirious maps is always the best thing to do if you can deal with it. Obviously, if you've got like 60% Delirious on a map, it can make it quite hard for people that don't have DPS to be able to insta one hit all of the mobs in the game. And then for this one, you can see we've got 96% increased rarity. This is actually a good example. And then some packs of monsters. So what we would do with this one, because, you know, we want quantity, which is basically what pack size will give us, because there's more monsters, which means more chance of drops. And quantity, we can hit this one with the pack size modifier, and so we've got a pack size and a rarity, and both of these will be used on more juiced maps, and that is kind of what I will be doing to maximize the amount of time that we are spending on the game and what we're rewarded with. And that is basically my strategy to map super fast, and I'd really recommend you do this. This is probably the fastest you can possibly do it. The tablets are expensive, the Grand Project Precursor tablets, so it's essentially about 2.5 tablets per divine. But in terms of how quickly you're saving yourself time, how quickly you're not wasting your time going to somewhere where maybe there isn't anything around it, it's just amazing. And what's even better is that because you're going to be getting to citadels much quicker, you can get the fragments. And if we go to the fragments right now and pick them, you can see a faded crisis fragment, 110 exalt. So essentially 2 tablets for every 1 citadel that you do. So you can use 2 of the boost to get to the citadel, and that pays for the boost. And that is basically anything that you get in your maps is free. Like, it's not costing you anything to do any of the maps. So just doing the fragments is going to give you, if you get 2 fragments, which can happen with the quantity and the what you actually doing in your map. So if you're running with quantity on the citadels themselves, you can get double drops of crisis fragments. So you can end up with 2, and in very rare cases, I'm pretty sure you can end up with 3. But most of the time it's 1, and probably 1 every 3 citadels I've done is a double drop for the crisis fragments. And if we go down here, you can see over the last day I've pretty much been running these. And if we go over here, these are the fragments that I've been able to get, and we've used 1 full one. Unfortunately, we can't get the I don't know what the other fragment's actually called, but we need a full set of the other ones. So yeah, that is what we've been able to get just from one day. So each one of these is about a div. Some of them are above a div, some of them are slightly below a div. So they're going to be able to pay for your map. And we've probably got what, like 9 div just simply from the fragments themselves, which are going to pay for 18 of these maps right here. And so everything else is just absolutely free. And we have definitely not used 18 of these to get to all of those. So that is what I'm doing. Hopefully that's become useful. Hopefully that's covered everything that you really need to know about trying to boost up your maps, the speed and everything. And I appreciate this is a longer video, but I wanted to go into detail as to how I do everything, how to maximize the money that you're spending on your maps and getting the most reward from it. And of course, saving yourself like 5 times the time in your maps. This is literally saving me 6 times the time of what I previously did to get anywhere on the maps. The tablet is broken, it's overpowered, and yeah, definitely get yourself some of these. And with that being said, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like it. And of course, you can subscribe down below. We're going to be doing a ton of different POE related content as well. So stay tuned for that. I've got one on a way to almost triple your damage, regardless of what you're actually using a friend. So, and in using a friend, you'll also get additional drops in your maps. And you can do it faster. And yeah, my lightning spear went from 56,000 damage to 140,000 damage when I am within the presence of my friend. So that is amazing. So I'm going to be doing a video on a build guide for someone using that build that my friend is using at the moment. And yeah, so stay tuned for that one. And we've got a couple more videos as well coming out where we're going to be spending about 10 million gold at vendors. So yeah, with that being said, thank you, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.